Hello and welcome to Newswire. I'm Ayza Omar. Now, tensions between Pakistan and India go up another notch as Pakistan Navy spokesperson confirms that Pakistan Navy foiled an Indian weapon-laden submarine's effort to remain undetected in Pakistan's territorial waters. He said that Pakistan did not target the Indian submarine to maintain peace between both countries and instead just issued a warning. So whether it is Pakistan's ambassador to the US or it's Pakistan's permanent representative in the UN, irrespective of how many times the Prime Minister of Pakistan or the Foreign Minister or even world leaders from Russia, China, the US insist that tensions between the two nuclear-armed states de-escalate, India continues to move on a war footing. It doesn't help its narrative of fighting terrorism when campaigning for the ruling BJP has begun ahead of a tough battle in the upcoming general elections in India. According to critics, Modi's India has exposed itself to the world as being warmongers, busy in creating war hysteria through their local media in an attempt to galvanize votes. Firing across the line of control continues, sending innocent Kashmiris, including women and children, to their graves. And now incursions in Pakistan's waters is leading to an uptick in tensions between the two nuclear-armed states. Where do we go from here? Let's discuss this with our panel of guests. First, I would like to introduce the former ambassador, Mr. Ashraf Qazi, who is joining us from the Islamabad studios. Welcome to Newswire, Mr. Ashraf. And also here in the Lahore studios, I'd like to welcome General Ghulam Mustafa. You're a defense analyst, and we will be beginning our conversation with both of you on what has just developed. Information has come in confirming. Mr. Ashraf, I want to start with you, if I may. How do you see this as an escalation in a way? Is this another one of Modi's stunts to galvanize votes?
I think the military phase of this Indian decision to have a confrontation with Pakistan in order to improve the poll ratings of Prime Minister Modi, this has reached a pause. India has got the worst of it, both in terms of image and in terms of actual exchanges with the Pakistan Air Force. So India has now said that we are going to move away from a pilot scheme to a more long-term game against Pakistan. You might say this, we have entered now into the hybrid war phase, which involves military, economic and diplomatic activity against Pakistan in an attempt to pressure Pakistan, isolate Pakistan, and India to gain some advantage so that it should be reflected in the polls. Otherwise, Prime Minister Modi is facing possible defeat. So this latest incident, which I've just learnt about, the entry of an Indian submarine into our waters, is part of the military aspect of trying to press Pakistan, maintain pressure on Pakistan. At the diplomatic level, there will be an attempt to get a resolution declaring the JEM, Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, as a global terrorist. At the diplomatic level, the Indians will be seeking through their representatives on the FATF, Financial Action Task Force, to either keep Pakistan on the grey list or to shift it to the blacklist, so that will be additional financial pressure on Pakistan. So this is the long-term pressure game on Pakistan, immediately to improve the polls and in a long-term basis to try and get Pakistan to feel it has no alternative to accepting the status quo in Jammu and Kashmir. And Pakistan, of course, is a party to that dispute and has obligations under UN resolutions to ensure that the people of that state do have a chance of exercising their right of self-determination.
So this
is a long-term game. Pakistan has certainly won the first phase.
The first phase, and please hold on to that thought. Let me pull in General into the conversation about what Modi was thinking. Clearly, BJP is facing a very hard battle in terms of being criticized for not meeting any of its goals. In fact, right now, India faces one of its highest unemployment rates in 45 years.
That be so. If I may, I think Modi is a subtext. What is happening between India and Pakistan is subtext. It's the overall game plan in the region which is in play. And right now, as we see, I personally feel Modi is a expendable item right now. Because the game plan right now is what Pakistan has become or is likely to become. This is what people are looking at. It's, if you look at its geography, linked to Afghanistan, this is the link between Eurasian landmass and the Indian Ocean. And if Pakistan is stabilized, it's a Muslim country, it's an atomic power, and it becomes economically stable, that is something that will prevent the linkages between the two, Eurasian landmass as well as the Indian Ocean. Now, that is something which is not acceptable to America, and I'm very sure, I've been saying right from day one as this latest round of tension started between the two, that it can't have happened without the American tacit approval.
So could you clarify a little more on when you say that Modi right now is a subtext to this entire conversation that's taking place and that he is expendable?
Of course, if Modi loses elections, only Modi loses elections and BJP loses elections. But the overall game plan is not that. The game plan is that take Pakistan to a place where its economic development stops. Number two, bring it to a place where it is forced to compromise on its strategic power. And number three, Pakistan should only be reduced to a pathway between, as I said, Eurasian landmass and Indian Ocean, and between India and the rest of the world. If that can be achieved, and that is what is the game plan right now, if you look at the overall power game. Now within that, what Modi is trying is that if he can use this to his advantage and win the elections, it suits the powers to be. Because Modi, when he was brought into power with the Indian corporations, big money, and that extremist mindset put together, that was the aim, to bring India to a level where on one side it can be a bulwark against the Chinese development in this region. The second is push Pakistan into a corner that I have said so. Okay. And that is something, yesterday if you recall, and this latest submarine incident is part of the game. It's an overall game. And I was just talking to the senior naval officers. About 2 years back, they tried that again.
2016, there was a similar incursion that took place.
What they're trying to do is now to see where and how alert Pakistan Navy is and where are the chinks where they can penetrate. It was proceeding towards the Balochistan coast, which actually means the Gwadar.
Right. So just hold that thought. Let me welcome another guest who's joining us, a journalist from Istanbul. Welcome to the show, Mohammed Faysal, bringing you part of this conversation that this naval incursion by India that's just taken place. And it's been taken place by a class of a submarine that is a very highly valued asset and not usually seen as something that is used when done intelligence reconnaissance. How do you, first of all, see this move by India?
I think we're just hearing reports from the... I've just heard reports from Dawn right now, but I'm not really sure how the Indians have responded to that because there are not enough reports from the Indian side as well. So it would be too early for me to confirm. But however, if it is true, then it shows that India is like engaging in more war games to establish its dominance over the region, especially with context if you see the tensions that have escalated over the past few weeks. So it's too early to comment on that. That's what I would say.
One of the, for example, if I were to quote an acclaimed intellectual, Arundhati Roy, she says that India is trying to goad Pakistan into a counter-strike in sort of making India and Pakistan, in what has happened in the past few days, has made it the only nuclear power two states to bomb each other, essentially, in history.
Well, I think India has already goaded Pakistan into striking. Like, you can see how Pakistan had this right to hot pursuit after India's airstrikes at Balakot. So I think that has already happened. But what remains to be seen is that would India's domestic pressures allow it to de-escalate, or would they just make the environment more difficult for the region? But having said that, I feel Indian government and its military intelligence understands that escalation is not in its favor. if you see the New York Times report yesterday, which said that if going by the current ammunition they have, if they go into a full-scale war, it would only last for 10 days. So maybe they have made a bad calculation, or maybe it was just a strike to, to create this hysteria against Pakistan again, which Modi has been doing for the last 7 years. So I don't see that the situation will escalate. As a Kashmiri as well, I hope that it doesn't. But I can't really say with the pressure, the domestic pressure that Modi has, because he is going to the phase of face saving now.
Right. So let me bring you back into the conversation, Mr. Qazi, especially in terms of what the narrative is coming from the topmost people in India. We heard the air chief saying yesterday the operation is still underway, instead of what we expected after External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj that said that we want to work towards de-escalation. Is this seen as a turning point once again?
Well, as I said, we have now entered the longer-term hybrid phase in which all three dimensions, military, economic and diplomatic, will be used by India. But unless another Pulwama-like incident is staged, the Indians will find it difficult to come up with a reasonable reason for trying to strike at Pakistan. I think right now the emphasis, the military threat is still there. It can happen any time, any day, today also. Not just naval, but air, and maybe on ground violations. Anything is possible, and we have to be ready for that. But having said that, I think the main emphasis is going to shift towards trying to isolate Pakistan diplomatically and bringing economic pressure so that the choices open to Pakistan are minimized or eliminated, and Pakistan is more or less compelled to sort of accept the status quo with respect to Jammu and Kashmir. Now, one of the subjects is this financial action task force, where Pakistan is required to take all kinds of actions, and they've been absolutely elaborated in very specific detail. And fortunately, Pakistan has decided and is already taking action, as the headlines of today's newspapers indicate, that closing down offices, freezing financial accounts, and taking all kinds of activities to completely make inactive organizations which are seen to be extremist organizations or terrorist organizations, and which are listed as such. So Pakistan has to in the past, the impression was that Pakistan would take some action but not complete it, or not take complete action, and as a result of which many of these organizations continued their activities and continued to have the freedom to finance, recruit and propagandize, or solicit funds and recruit people to their cause. Now Pakistan has been under pressure, and the new government is taking all the necessary action. Now, once we take this action, India will not have a viable narrative against Pakistan, that Pakistan is sponsoring terrorism, and therefore India is not attacking Pakistan, but India is conducting counter-terrorist operations against targets in Pakistan, which Pakistan has been protecting. That excuse will be taken away from India, and India will be forced to face the reality.
Right. Sorry to cut you, Mr. Qazi, but the point here is that General Mustafa, this action against proscribed organizations that Pakistan has been taking, this was taking place even prior to the Pulwama attack.
That is what is in Pakistan's interest, and Pakistan would be, I think, ill-advised not to do it. And if you look at Khadim Rizvi and his team, they have been neutralized, and Jawat-e-Dawa has been neutralized. And Pakistan has been working very hard, because having buried 70,000 of its own shaheeds, and as many injured and incapacitated, Pakistan just can't afford this kind of a thing. The issue is different. I have always maintained that there can be another Pulwama, and that may not be Pakistan's doing. Like this one was. Pakistan has been proved right not once but many times. There is Pathankot, Samjhota Express with Bombay. The world is now coming out with the fact that Pakistan didn't do it.
And the narrative has always been the same from India, that these have been caused by Pakistan's funded terrorists. But when it comes to investigations, why doesn't that evidence come forth? Why isn't there a discussion?
Even this time, when they have given you the so-called dossier on Pulwama, what you find is just all media reports, print media reports, and the TV media reports.
So
nothing more than
concrete.
that. Nothing concrete. There was nothing concrete in Pathankot. When our investigators went there, they were not even allowed to visit the site. And the Indian inspector who was investigating that, mind you, and the Indian media, with the timelines, proved that Pathankot could not have been done by Pakistan. And that inspector who was investigating, he was shot 35 bullets. You don't, I mean, this was something totally unheard of. And there's, because he was reaching to the point. And the one who unearthed Samjhota Express, Mr. Kurkre, when the Bombay happened, he was the first man to be shot right here in his face, middle of the head. And that was with a pistol which wasn't being used with the so-called terrorists. So the point I'm trying to make is that there will always be an issue created or manufactured to pressurize Pakistan in the larger game plan. And therefore, India itself being used as a tool and trying to become so-called the rising superpower, and this kind of megalomania, you imagine that, and then it's also got a backing of some of the so-called world powers. You have a ready-made disaster ready to happen anytime. Unless the Indians themselves decide, Pakistan cannot solve India's Kashmir problem, number one, because the Kashmiris who can solve the Indians' Kashmir problem, and India can solve that. That has to be done by the Indians themselves. And when it comes to Mr. Modi, India has to decide whether they want to continue this kind of a madness that has been brought on by this gentleman and this his ilk, or they want to move away from here and they want to bring in peace like Pakistan has been trying. I think this time, to some of us who are, used to be in the battlefield, we consider Pakistan has gone not extra mile, but extra 10 miles to tell the world that we have been trying for peace. We want peace. And at this point in history, when Pakistan is now ready to take off, with investment coming on from China, with the Soviet Union, Russia coming in here.
Right.
You have UAE coming in here. You have, what you find is Pakistan now becoming the economic hub in the region as well.
And also gaining political mileage. And with that, just hold that thought, let me welcome Vice Admiral Ahmed Tasneem joining us from Islamabad. You're a defense analyst. Could you tell us a little about this naval incursion, especially the nature of the submarine that was used? What do you think it was tasked with doing in Pakistan territorial waters?
Well, I think this is not the first time we have detected a submarine in our waters. We did the same about 2 years ago. And it reflects that I don't think Indian submarine service is very competent, because if you get detected like this while snorkeling or doing operations, then you can't be much proud of your professionalism. That's the first point. Second is that both detection happen roughly in the same area south of Balochistan coast. So I spoke the angle of CPAC can't be ruled out, or where the trade is going to flow in billions and billions of tons.
So you think it was a reconnaissance mission, maybe an intelligence gathering mission?
Well, I think there probably come intelligence charges deployed this thing, but it also sends a negative message that when we are trying to de-escalate, putting submarines in our waters, it's not a step towards the right direction of de-escalation, it's probably escalation. And the job would be probably intelligence gathering. But when we have de-escalated, I, as a retired officer, expect submarines to be withdrawn or go back to their home ports, not be in our waters. This the thing. So, it's a bit of a hypocrisy, I think, in Indian policy, that while openly they are talking about de-escalation, they still have deployed their resources and their platforms in a hostile manner, if I may say so.
And Vice Admiral, considering that both countries are not at war officially or technically, what is the international protocol with armed forces when such an incursion takes place?
Well, it's not at war, but I think it appears that both countries' forces are alert. At least I'm very happy as a retired officer to see that though Navy known as silent service, it is not silent service. It is absolutely on alert so that we can sleep peacefully. The Navy, this is a proof of Navy as a service and the part of our defense forces being very alert, and they are not they are not off guard, so that if anything happens, any action taken, we can immediately reciprocate and retaliate. So it shows the Navy is absolutely alert, but sadly, it shows that our adversary is not following what it's saying. They say that de-escalation, but actually it is a step towards escalation. We would like peace. We want to talk on the table, as our Prime Minister has said, but these sort of steps don't encourage towards that direction.
Would it have been an international violation of any sort if Pakistan, in self-defense, targeted this submarine instead of giving giving it a warning?
Well, we detected the submarine, and I think we could have attacked, yes, and damaged or sunk her, but restraint exercise by Pakistan Navy, in my opinion, as a retired officer, it sends a message of peace and de-escalation.
All right, Vice Admiral Ahmed Tasneem, so much for joining us here on Newswire. I want to come back to you, Mohammed Faysal, while we're talking about escalation between Pakistan and India. In your perception, while you're sitting in Istanbul, you're obviously monitoring international media. Do you feel like that inadvertently Prime Minister Modi has brought Kashmir in the forefront in the international news?
Well, listening to the discussion, I feel that our esteemed panelists are ignoring the elephant in the room, which is Kashmir itself. There's this indigenous movement going on, and last year, 526 people were killed, which had over 200 rebels, and the year before they killed 200, and the year before they killed 100. So in Kashmir, there are right now, according to the government estimates, about 200 rebels, with the 500,000 Indian army plus police. The police itself in Kashmir is bigger than Kenya's army. So you can imagine the amount of militarization. The fact is that India is not able to curtail the indigenous movement there, the armed movement that is going on. So what it does is that...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you say it's not able to curtail, what exactly are you insinuating?
That's what I was coming to. Like India's Operation All Out, which basically is based on this mosquito repellent in India, which is a very dehumanizing thing. So what India has been trying is to have this occupier's logic that by killing enough rebels, they would kill the resistance, that they would tire of the resistance. But the fact is that it has only emboldened more people to join the rebels, and they are hardly trained. In Kashmir, these rebels, they have weapons they have snatched from the Indian forces. These are not weapons that have been airdropped from Pakistan or China or any other country. So for Modi, it's his failure of ending the militancy in Kashmir, which is not going to end. It's one of the longest insurgencies in the world. His failure to address that, he's trying to deflect it to Pakistan. The Pulwama attack that happened was an indigenous attack. It wasn't made in Pakistan. It was a guy who was in Pulwama, who was forced into taking up arms, who did something of a suicide attack at that scale that put both India and Pakistan into a war, a nuclear war. So the basic fact remains that until and unless you cannot address the issue in Kashmir, you will always have tensions between India and Pakistan. As Bill Clinton in 2002 said, Kashmir is the world's most dangerous place, and it's also a world's most dangerous trigger for a nuclear war. So until and unless there's a redressal, I mean, I'm not sure that Modi can do it with his right-wing rhetoric over the last 8 years. His abject failure to address the issue, his failed military operations in Kashmir, which were there to basically root out the militancy, he has only increased the ranks of the rebels. Yesterday alone, there was a 2-day-long firefight in Handwara, which is in Kashmir. 2 militants hold up an entire about 10 companies of the Indian Army, and they killed about 8 police and military personnel. And instead of fighting them in a proper counterinsurgency operation, what they have done is they have bombed 13 houses. These are 13 homes of families in a village, a tiny village. So they've destroyed an entire village. So for people who say that there is no war between India and Pakistan, there is a war in Kashmir, and it's against these people.
Thank you so much, Mohammed Faysal, for your valuable input there. While Pakistan continues efforts on bringing India to the table on Kashmir also, all of them being returned with no cooperation, we can only hope to see situation improving. But right now we have to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Newswire with me, Ayza Omar. Discussing with our guests is the situation between Pakistan and India, as recent developments show that we saw an Indian submarine crossing into Pakistani waters and was warned by the Pakistan Navy. Now, this is something that has happened before, as recent as 2016. To discuss the implications of such a gesture by India, we have on the line with us Vice Admiral Asaf Hamayun. You're a defense analyst and you're joining us from Karachi. Welcome to Newswire. Very quickly, trying to get a take of how you see this development in light of what has transpired in the past 2 weeks.
Thank you very much. As you can see on the video which has been released by Pakistan Navy, this incident took place about 8:35 yesterday evening. And Indian Navy has been, Indian media has been portraying that Indian Navy will be part of any strike or any aggression or any attack India intends to launch against Pakistan. This has been on the news for the last 3-4 days. Now, the detection of this submarine is in spite of the fact that this submarine has come here to participate in a supposed war or pressure tactics against Pakistan. So its detection by Pakistan Navy aircraft is a Allah's blessing on us, and also proves that Pakistan Navy is superior in profession, ability, and its equipment, etc., in anti-submarine warfare are top class, and they have been able to detect the latest Indian conventional submarine, which was only inducted in Indian Navy in 2017. It is only 1.5 year old, this submarine.
So, Vice Admiral Asif, this was reports confirm a weapon-laden submarine. What is the international protocol? Can this be seen as a legitimate threat that could have proved a...
International protocol is concerned, I will correct something. This submarine was not detected in Pakistan's territorial seas, but it was detected in seas adjacent to our territorial seas, and it would take maximum few hours for this submarine to enter Pakistan's territorial waters. And submarines which are fitted with the standoff weapons, etc., don't have to enter your territorial waters. This submarine, for example, carries anti-ship missiles which can very well attack up to 70, 80 kilometers. So it could have very easily attacked naval ships or merchant ships inside Pakistan's territorial waters.
So it was a threat then?
The international protocol, because we are not in a declared state of war, so I would say the international protocol does not grant Pakistan a right to immediately attack the submarine.
Right.
But we could have warned her, we could have made her surface, etc., etc. Those things were possible for us.
Right. So then that begs the question, then why now, especially considering tensions are so high between the two nuclear-armed states?
Well, I would say, why now? This does not surprise me that the submarine has been lurking in close to our waters. What surprises me is the ability, it makes me proud, the ability of Pakistan Navy to detect the submarine which has come with the intentions of waging war in waters, in seas adjacent to Pakistan's territorial seas.
But it's a good message to put across when it comes to the ability of the forces.
Message, and it also shows, the Pakistan Navy, not taking any aggressive measures to force the submarine on surface or harm it in any way, also sends a message that Pakistan does not want escalation in the current tension or in the current military postures of two countries.
Absolutely. And here I want to bring in Mr. Qazi, who's still with us in the Islamabad studios. If I could get your comment on which way do we see going forward in trying to, while Pakistan continues attempts on de-escalation, how do we see the international community reacting to India's stance?
Well, here we have to be realistic, Unfortunately, Pakistan's image in the past with respect to allegations of terrorism and other such activity has become a reality, and India is trying to take advantage of that by suggesting that Pakistan had something to do with Pulwama. Against all the evidence, how can you take 370 kilos of explosives across the LOC and help the suicide bombing of CRPF convoy? But what India has been relying on is to rely on the kind of prejudice that is developed against Pakistan, especially amongst Western countries or Western influenced countries in their public opinion. However, what is now happening is that Pakistan is taking the kind of action that it might have taken a long time ago, but der ayad, durust ayad, even if it's better than never, and we are taking really credible action now. So India's ability to portray Pakistan as a destabilizing sponsor of terrorism, that is being undermined altogether. India will now have to face the fact that inside Kashmir, they have absolutely lost forever the hearts and minds of the people of the valley because of their very brutal policies, which have been documented and which have been condemned at so many international forums. And so this attempt to divert attention from India's own brutal failures in the valley to Pakistan, and also to try and revive the political fortunes of the BJP and Prime Minister Modi, all of those have hit a major obstacle. So they are now, as I said before, trying to sort of enter into a longer term phase, but even Pakistan is taking very effective measures there so that they won't be successful. Now what's left for India, we can hope, and our Prime Minister has always extended his hand of understanding and the need for dialogue and the need to develop a working relationship, while at the same time reserving Pakistan's right to defend itself by all means. So India may now come under increasing international pressure to address the human rights situation, to begin dialogue with Pakistan, and to sort of avert any prospect of any breakdown of the peace between two nuclear weapons powers, because scientists have estimated that, God forbid, if a nuclear war broke out between India and Pakistan, an estimated 1 to 2 billion people around the world could die. So the international community has no stomach, no tolerance for such a prospect, and Pakistan has extended its hand of peace and dialogue to India, and it's still there, as the statements made by the Prime Minister of Pakistan were truly statesmanlike, whereas the statements of Narendra Modi are one of panic and one of a person just looking for short-term advantage from Pakistan. And many of the Indians are themselves now criticizing both the Indian military as well as the Indian Prime Minister.
Absolutely. And General, talk a little more about international community's role. Even though Pakistan boycotted the session, or the OIC session, what we saw was 2 resolutions were passed in favor of Pakistan. And the External Affairs Minister had to really give an explanation of the Pulwama attack. What is your perception of these OIC resolutions? Do you think they were really in the favor of Pakistan? Have we won that war of perception also?
To start with, yes, I think OIC did a wonderful job, despite presence of Indian Foreign Minister. OIC condemned in strongest possible terms of what India was doing, whether it was crossing Pakistan's airspace or what is happening in Kashmir. So that to that extent, I think Pakistan should feel satisfied, but can't give up on these efforts. The Pakistan perception, as the ambassador was talking, Pakistan has as I've been saying time and again, we have a problem. And the problem is, regardless of what Pakistan does, international community will accept only what it likes to accept. And that is, whether is Pakistan ready to submit totally. If Pakistan does that, that is what will please them. And that is not likely to happen.
And when you say is ready to submit what?
Submit to the extent that who do you think in this world likes Pakistan being a nuclear power? Which is the country in this area which likes Pakistan becoming an economic power in this region, rising out of in the mess that we have been for the last so many years? Which country likes that? That is what we must understand. Kashmir is the trigger point. It's the world's nuclear trigger point. This world has known that.
Right.
And we had come this close to this becoming, I wouldn't like to use the terms, but night 27th, 28th, when the Prime Minister said in the Assembly that I was told that the missiles are being launched, Pakistan is in target to it. Brahmos, who knows missiles are tipped with what kind of a weapon system? And Pakistan has to, it can't take the risk that a missile coming to Pakistan is not nuclear tipped. And if Pakistan proceeds that is what the world was told that night. Because Pakistan, I am not talking of what Pakistan said. Right. I am talking of what the international media was saying, that Pakistan's Shaheen 3 were seen moving out and going to the locations.
This could have gone very badly.
Yeah, that could have gone south
way.
and way down south. And that is how close we were that night. And yesterday, as the news broke out, as the official sources are confirming that the plan was hatched in Afghanistan. It was India, it was Israel sitting there. Afghanistan, India, Israel, it can't happen without Americans' backing.
Right.
So what I'm trying to highlight time and again is that Pakistan, despite all this, and I agree with the ambassador, that Pakistan has to do it not because it suits the international community, but because it is overall interest of Pakistan. But will Pakistan's effort be recognized? Will Kashmir be recognized as the flashpoint that it is?
Okay.
And as I said earlier, and I agree with Faysal saying that, the Kashmiris have now taken the whole thing in their own hands. And quoting Mrs. Roy, and I've been saying that too, that it's now time to free India. Kashmiris are free. It's now time to free India from Kashmir.
Right. And with that, let me welcome Major General Saad Khattak, who's also joining Newswire. Welcome to this show. Major General, getting your angle on this, what is the world doing? I mean, 27th, 26th Feb, as General just highlighted, was a crucial night, not just for Pakistan, India, but the security of the region. This could have gone very badly. Where is the international community, and what more does Pakistan need to do to show that it wants peace?
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show. I totally agree with what General Mustafa was talking about. I think the international community is still to be woken up to the nature of threat that South Asia is facing right now. Pakistan is doing all its best to restrain itself. The Indians are trying to testing us everywhere. They did that in the air. They're doing it every day on the line of control, on the ground. Now they've tried it in the sea, and I think in every field they have been checked. They found our people, our soldiers, our armed forces absolutely alert and responsive. The international community needs to actually understand and recognize the root cause of all this that is happening. Every now and then there's tension between India and Pakistan, and the root cause is not taken into account. And so I think this time when the two countries were almost on the brink on that night, and I think what is important for the international community, especially the Western powers, including the United States, that they understand the seriousness of the situation in the Indian-held Kashmir and force them to come to the negotiation table. At our end, I think our diplomatic effort has, for the first time, I think, done a good job, but that's not enough. We need to continue our pursuit in the diplomatic arena to ensure that the Indians are kept on the defensive. The Kashmir issue is highlighted every now and then. The Indians, through their own stupidities, highlight at the international fora the Kashmir dispute, and while at the same time they want this to be a dispute between India and Pakistan bilaterally, but through their own handling of issues and situations, they internationalize the issue themselves. So I think we need to continue with the diplomatic aggression overall, and at the same time remain alert on the all frontiers, geographical frontiers.
Right, Major General, also I would like to get your comments on the juxtaposition of the situation whereby India says that this attack on the 26th of February on Pakistan space was because Pakistan doesn't do anything about alleged terrorists. What to say about the terrorists that are sponsored by India, the raw agents like Kulbhushan Jadhav, who was sentenced to death by Pakistan's military court, a military court whose process is seen credible in international forums. What to say of that?
The point is that Pakistan has always been asking India to share with us actionable intelligence, and Pakistan always promised that they will take action. Even the Prime Minister very recently in his national address, he said the same thing. In fact, the dossier that they give is all, pack of papers and not giving any actionable intelligence. Whereas we have, Kulbhushan Jadhav, who himself admits he is in our hand. And therefore, we have clear evidence of their involvement in our country, internal affairs of our country. So Pakistan would always respond if there is something actionable. If that is what I understood from your question.
Yes,
so
I'm trying to understand the insurgencies in Balochistan, the unrest, the terrorist activities in Balochistan. Isn't there irrefutable evidence that Pakistan has that this is being sponsored by India?
Absolutely. I had been in Balochistan for quite a long time during my service, and I know it very well. The Indian consulate in Zaidan, the Indian consulate in Kandahar, they do not do any consular functioning. So if they don't do any consular functioning, what is the point in having these consulates right across Pakistan's border if they're not doing consular functioning, which is supposed to be doing? So the point is that they are doing only sabotage activities and espionage activities within the Pakistani territory while using these consulates in both Iran and Afghanistan.
All right. Thank you so much, Major General Saad there joining us. And very quickly, I want to come to you, Mr. Qazi. We're running out of time. We've been talking about perceptions and whether this war of perceptions has been won by Pakistan. What really concerns me here is in this conversation, the rhetoric that Pakistan has been funding terrorists and terrorist activity. This kind of impression has stuck to Pakistan despite Pakistan's good intentions. What more needs to be done before the international community wakes up to reality?
Well, I think it's specific, and we are taking that action. As I mentioned, the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, has asked Pakistan to take certain very specific actions before September of this year, when they come to a decision to either take us off the grey list or to put us on the blacklist and all. Now, if we were to fail in taking all the necessary measures, and they're quite demanding measures, but the government is taking those measures, and I have every confidence that by the time September comes, we will have easily qualified to be delisted, taken off the list altogether. And therefore, India will not be able to accuse Pakistan with any effectiveness. Yes, they'll need to do that, to say Pakistan is involved in this, but they will not get the international kind of backing, direct and indirect, that they have up until now received. So this will then force them, as I've already said, to review their policy in Kashmir, which is going nowhere. They're just murdering people, killing people, blinding people, all kinds of black laws, all kinds of repression, and India's own name and prestige throughout the world, because it wants to be it's aspiring to be a great power. That's taking a beating. So the Pakistani offer of dialogue on all issues, including core issues for India and for Pakistan. For us, the core issue is movement towards a Kashmir solution based on the right of self-determination of the people of Kashmir. India claims its core interest is the elimination of terrorism directed against it. Well, Pakistan will have already done that, and so there won't be much in that for India. So India will be on a weaker wicket, and will need to engage with Pakistan. Otherwise, it will be in danger of getting isolated itself in the international arena, and its policies against Pakistan will become quite ineffective. And we have taken the first step in this direction.
Taken the first
These
step,
are very
right.
tough decisions. We have to convince people, and at the same time, we have to revive our economy, and we have to build our trade. And as our Prime Minister has said, we want a good relationship with India. It can never be completely normalized unless we have a breakthrough on the core issue of Jammu and Kashmir. But meantime, we can build an atmosphere and an environment in which the chances for progress will increase. It is possible that after the general elections in India, no matter what the result, the new government, whether headed by Modi or not, will take another look at its policies in view of A, Pakistan's ability to defend itself, and B, Pakistan's ability to take the actions necessary to end its isolation on the question
Qazi
of extremism and terrorism.
Thank you so
both
much.
with regard to India.
All right. So much for your input. I'm sorry to cut you there. We're running out of time. I quickly want your version on this. General Mustafa, are you that optimistic that Pakistan's on the right path of diplomacy and needs to just be patient as the world recognizes and sees what India is up to?
Pakistan has been on the right path all along, whether it's diplomacy. We may not have been that enthusiastic or very persuasive that way, but Pakistan has been on the right path. Number two, militarily, yes, Pakistan is the right. Do you imagine how close we were last night when we went to war? If Pakistan were to perceive the submarine to be having aggressive designs, having located, once it gets located, the admirals didn't tell you that because they thought, once submarine gets located, it's as good as destroyed. Where would have led to the peace in this region?
Right.
The second thing we must understand is, the world has not heard Modi talking right on 15 August 2015 at Lal Killa, telling the world that I did this in East Pakistan. We are doing this in Balochistan and Gilgit-Baltistan. That is something that Pakistan has to build on. That while we are doing everything which is good for Pakistan, the world must understand what Modi is doing to India and what is India doing themselves. And Kashmir, we are always this close to war.
Right.
And it could lead to anywhere. That is what the world must understand.
All right. Thank you so much, General Mustafa. And that was our panel of guests discussing tensions between Pakistan and India again on the rise as the latest developments come in of a naval incursion, not exactly in Pakistani waters, as the Admiral clarified to us earlier, but nonetheless not creating an atmosphere of de-escalation as Pakistan continues to push for peace in the region. And with that, that's all the time we have. Thank you for watching Newswire. I'm Ayza Omar. Goodbye.